Welcome to Motherhood and ADHD. I'm your friend, Patricia Sen. My mission is to be a lighthouse for mothers with ADHD, helping you find your path to success by learning to appreciate your ADHD as an asset. I'm seeking to change the paradigm that ADHD means your life is doomed to be a hot mess. So I'm sharing strategies and encouraging you in your pursuit of happiness to love who you are every day of your ADHD life. Hey there, successful mama. It's your friend Patricia. So right now we've been talking about lessons I learned in therapy. I learned a lot in just a few short months. And today we're talking about your brain as an instrument for survival. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty, I just want to remind you that I am not a doctor. I am not a psychologist, a psychiatrist, a counselor, a therapist. I don't have any fancy degrees from fancy places in this field. I mean, I do have a degree, but not related to this. And so anything that I'm sharing with you today is truly just from my own experience. I've been dealing with my ADHD and perfectionism for 30-something years, and that is what I can offer you, that 30 years of experience. However, I am cognizant of the fact that not everybody can afford to go to therapy because it is expensive and it takes a lot of time. So I want to take what I learned and share it with you so that you can get started on healing. And then hopefully this will give you some tools if this is something that you are not able to do on your own, or give you the kick in the rear to say, hey, this is really important, and this is something that is worth spending my time, my energy, and money on so that I can be a happier, more joyful, productive, whatever it is that you're trying to move forward in your life, and that this is a worthy place to spend your money. I mean, really, we can't buy happiness, but you can buy therapy, which I think helps us out a lot. So, let's jump in. Our brain's number one job is survival. Its job is to keep you alive. Now, this was really valuable back in the day when we were hunter-gatherers. Say you're out picking some berries and your brain is constantly scanning the horizon, making sure there's not a grizzly bear sneaking up on you. Today, we don't really have to worry about a ferocious creature sneaking up on us, but still our brains are wired for survival. That primordial level of basic need, our brain is just trying to keep us alive. Generally speaking, that's great. Thanks, brain. I really like being alive. I appreciate that. Our brain is not wired for improvement. Improvement involves risk, and our brain is wired to keep us safe. So therefore, the opposite of risk. Our brain is trained to do things the way that we've always done them because it knows that we are safe. So I love creating analogies to make this picture vivid when I'm teaching. And so you all get the benefit / entertainment value here in my analogies. And I think of this as your brain is like a meerkat colony. I love meerkats. They're so cute. They'll all pop up and they look around with their paws in the air. Well, in every meerkat colony, there is a lookout. You can see it when you're in the zoo. There's always a higher pile of dirt, and there'll be one meerkat sitting up there looking. The same thing if they're out in the savannah. There's always one meerkat sitting up on the tallest pile of dirt as the lookout, and it's scanning the horizon. It's making sure everything's okay, and as soon as it sees anything that looks even remotely could possibly be threatening, the lookout meerkat sends out the bat signal, and all the meerkats run underground into their burrows to safety. So in terms of existing, this is great. Our brain keeps us alive every day. Let's all say thanks, brain. Thanks for keeping me alive. But this is a struggle because in terms of the way we do things, our brain is not wired to choose the fastest way or the most efficient way or the easiest way. Your brain is always going to take the path that it did before because it knows that when you climbed up the mountain to the berries using the east side of the mountain, it was safe. There were no grizzly bears. So your brain's going to continue to send you up the east side of the mountain because it knows it's safe. The moment that you want to do a new thing and you say, hey, what if we took the west side of the mountain to go get our berries? Your brain freaks out because it does not know that heading up the west side of the mountain is safe. It doesn't know if there are grizzly bears lurking everywhere, and its job is to keep you safe. So it's going to go, oh no, hold up. We know that when we go up the east side of the mountain, it is safe. We don't know the west side of the mountain. The west side is scary, scary, scary. We don't know anything about it. It is unknown. It is scary. We are not going up the west side of the mountain because the east side of the mountain is safe. Now, it doesn't matter if the west side of the mountain is a leisurely stroll and you're like hiking up with your mountain climbing gear on the east side. It doesn't matter. Your brain is always going to pick the side that is comfortable because that's your brain's job, is to survive. So when you want to try something new, your brain is going to fight you on it. So boo brain, not helpful. In modern day society, there's not grizzly bears lurking around the corner. Maybe if you're in Alaska, I don't know. But generally speaking, we don't have to worry about that basic level of survival anymore. So when you want to challenge yourself to do a different thing, you are also having to challenge your brain. Your survivalist brain is not going to choose the quote unquote better option, the faster option, the more efficient option, the easier option. It is going to pick the default because it knows it's safe. This shines through in the simplest of things. Think about your coffee routine or your tea routine or whatever beverage you grab first thing in the morning. You probably do it pretty much the same way every day. There's not a lot of variety in the overall process of getting your coffee going because you've been doing that way for a while and your brain is comfortable there. If your friend starts telling you about this great new coffee they tried, most people's response is something like, I don't know. We don't immediately jump on that activity most of the time. However, if your friend brings you an extra latte one morning and says, hey, I got you this latte. You want to try it? And you'd be like, oh yeah, sure. Because there's low risk involved, right? You didn't spend any money. You didn't have to go out of your way or change your routine. You just have this free latte appeared. You try it. It's delicious. And you're like, wow, why wouldn't I have traded this delicious latte for whatever ho-hum thing you've been doing all this time? Because your brain needs evidence. When your friend brings it to you and you try it right then, that was a very low risk way to add evidence in your brain's filing cabinet that trying new coffee is safe. It's okay. It was not laced with arsenic. Everything is fine. You can try the new coffee. Our brain is always going to put up that resistance of trying new things because of the unknown, that fear factor. So when we decide to do something different in our lives, we have to push through a big wall of resistance in how our brain is fundamentally wired. So in talking through all this with my therapist, it helped me to accept this fact that my brain is always going to choose the comfortable road. It's not going to choose the unknown. And it made me feel better. There wasn't something wrong with me, that I don't want to try new things or be better. It's that my brain is fundamentally wired to not do that. I understand that when my brain sees something unusual on the horizon, it sends out the bat signal telling everyone, burrow underground, danger is coming. And so it's supposed to be uncomfortable to do something different or try something new. And once I recognized that and accepted that things are going to be hard if I want to do something different, it was a lot easier in the sense that I didn't feel so defeated, like there was something wrong with me, that I couldn't change the way that I was doing things. And then she also helped me identify what it is that I wanted to change. What are the struggles that I'm dealing with? And then once I pick a goal, how do I systematically mount evidence for this new way of doing things so that my brain is comfortable in the new change? Now, for some people, making these changes is really easy. Some people, it's really hard. Some people, it just depends on the situation. Changing their coffee routine might not be like a huge deal, but changing their bedtime routine might be a real struggle for them. But the more evidence that you can give your brain to show it, it's safe. We can do the different thing. We're not going to get eaten by a grizzly bear. Then your brain becomes more and more okay with adopting the new way because it knows nothing bad's going to happen because you baby stepped your way there. I always talk about baby steps. I'm sure I've mentioned it 400 times on the podcast, but understanding why, in terms of like how brains are made and how humans function, getting that through therapy was just like mind blowing of like, oh, there is a scientific reason behind why this method works for us. Now, the baby steps are important because if you just jump in with your brain and try to change your entire route to the west side of the mountain, you're going to have a high level of panic. It can be really stressful. It's overwhelming. But if you do baby steps of like, well, let me start on the west side for like, the first 2-3 minutes. And then I could switch back to the east side of the mountain and continue my way up. And you work little by little. Over time, if your brain sees, hey, we went up the west side of the mountain the last 10 times and everything was fine, there were no grizzly bears, then it makes it easier to move forward. Now, I do think that we do have a bit of like an untapped advantage in having ADHD because we frequently have an affinity towards risk, just as a general, very stereotypical view of people with ADHD. They tend to be comfortable with trying new things more than some people. Some people are okay with change, but there are also people that are not. So if this is something that you're good at naturally, you can then apply that skill into more practical ways in your life. Like if you're comfortable trying new things like, hey, you want to go skydiving? Let's go. You can apply that comfortability with risk to other things in your life that may be lame, like, am I comfortable trying a new bedtime routine? Now, if you don't have this natural affinity towards risk-taking, that's fine. We're not all the same. Then we use the baby step method of trying it in little pieces. I really wish that I could say that I'm so much better at this than I was. No, I have to make a concerted effort every time I want to do something different. I have to map out the baby steps that I'm going to take. But I am a lot more comfortable with the uncomfortableness of it, of knowing that my brain is not going to be happy about the changes that I'm making, that I have to use my higher level thinking to overpower that survival level mode to push through and do bigger and better things. So I would say that my attitude has adjusted in the way that I view fear and that I am not as scared of doing the different things. I love the phrase, do it scared. Most people who are courageous are not fearless. There's a difference. And I think a lot of times we put more value on the fearlessness and we don't realize that being courageous is a whole lot more difficult than being fearless. Being courageous means that it's not that you don't have any fear, it's that you're working through it while scared and being okay to sit in that uncomfortableness so that you can adjust your brain's mindset and be okay with doing things in a different way. There are so many people who do things scared, who are considered quote unquote experts at something, but yet it's still really hard for them. And I was reminded of this a few weeks ago. I think I mentioned this podcast previously, but Susan Cain has written the book Quiet, which is one of my favorite books as an introvert. And the podcast I was listening to was Tim Ferriss's podcast where he interviewed Susan Cain. And Susan was explaining that as an introvert, obviously she does not enjoy public speaking. But now that she is famous for her book on being an introvert, she's now doing all this public speaking. And Tim Ferriss was chiming in with like, yeah, I'm an introvert as well. And here I am doing, they both got started in the realm of being an author, which is a very introverted method of explaining your feelings. And now they're both doing it in public speaking, which is so counter to what they would have thought they would be doing or probably would choose in terms of just like a comfortability factor. And I love how Susan walked through how she did cognitive behavioral therapy in learning how to be a public speaker. The process that she went through from being scared to talk to most everyone to being comfortable enough to do a TED Talk. And Tim has also done one, and they talked about how stressful that situation is because you have a very exact set of rules and timing that you must follow. You have to have it completely memorized. You can't have note cards. You can see that in TED Talks, they don't have note cards in front of them. You have to have the whole thing memorized. It's very stressful. And Tim Ferriss was relating about how they had like a green room area for people to get ready. And he was super stressed out by it because the next few people that were going ahead of him were these quote unquote experts on public speaking. And he's like, they were all freaking out. They were going crazy and their nerves were making me feel more stressed out. He's like, I got to get out of here. This green room is stressing me out and making it worse. And so he also brought up how Mike Tyson is one of the most decorated fighters ever, and yet he would throw up before every fight. So all of these people are doing scary things and they're uncomfortable, but they've learned to see that the fear is there, recognize it, but they can sit in it. Like they're familiar enough with it that they can power through those tough parts because they have shown their brain that even though this is uncomfortable and hard, it's not dangerous. There's no grizzly bears. We can still get through these tough things. So I think that's a really important lesson, that we're never going to get rid of all the fear. We're never going to be fearless. In fact, the people who are fearless are often viewed as like, oh, there's something wrong there with their brains, because they should have that level of fear, like some minimal amount of the survival instinct that your brain has to keep them safe. And if they don't, well, you've got something amiss there. We're never going to lose all of our fear, but in spending time with that, it loses some of its fearsome quality. We're just learning to be okay in the fear so that we can make changes and convince our brain and mount all that evidence that there aren't any grizzly bears lurking at the water cooler, and it's okay to go over there at work and talk to somebody new. So, Mama, I hope that understanding a little more of how your brain functions will give you the confidence to know that this is meant to be a difficult process. Learning to do something new, changing your routines, doing things in a different way is meant to send up the alert system in your body, because your brain's job is to keep you safe. But when we know that we're not jumping into the pit of lions, we can still make those changes and learn to be comfortable in the uncomfortableness. And we can slowly mount evidence to our brain that it is okay to do something in a different way. So I'd love to hear how you tackle this. Come find me on Instagram or Facebook or on my website and let me know, what evidence are you mounting so that your brain can see that this new thing is going to be okay. Because you, successful mama, can do hard things. You can change the way that you always have done things. It's just a matter of taking baby steps and showing in those baby steps that there is no grizzly bear lurking in that new exercise routine. I'll talk to you soon, successful mama. Thank you for listening to Motherhood in ADHD. For more resources, head over to our website, www.motherhoodinadhd.com.